Hello all. Well, the wind just came up. Hopefully I can do the video and it won't be too crackly with the wind. Look at it, it's just blowing crazy now. It was just calm as can be 2 seconds ago. Now it's a full gale. Let's go try somewhere else. Jeez. Somebody doesn't like videographers up there. Alright, we've been walking, trying to find a spot. I'm just going to do them a little bit at a time. There's some people coming. Let's see what we can get down here. We're going to talk about carbon monoxide at first, because nobody ever talks about it anymore. Yeah, the wind has now come up. Well, let's try another place. Well, that didn't work at all. Too many people. San Francisco is just becoming so crowded, and the wind, because this is a La Nina year, the wind is up most of the time. It just makes it extraordinarily difficult to do any kind of video work at all. And because the camera's on a tripod, people come running over thinking you're Hollywood. So carbon monoxide is an air pollutant, but it is in the makeup of our air at about 0.2% parts per million. Natural sources of carbon monoxide are bushfires and volcanoes. So for exposure purposes, 50 parts per million to 400 parts per million is high exposure and can cause death. It depends on the exposure level and the time that you're exposed. So this gas is all about how long you're exposed to breathing it. The longer you breathe it, the less amount you can put up with. That's where the 50 comes in at. So what human-caused sources cause carbon monoxide? 75.7% is transportation. Wood burning is 10.6%. Aluminum smelting is 9.1%. Pulp and paper is 2%. And all the other industries are 2.4% contributors. Now, any other sources that I didn't mention are about 0.2%. But most of the time with carbon monoxide, it's either the air pollution in the cities, like India has in China, and parts of the U.S. like Los Angeles and the San Francisco Bay Area, and now Seattle and New York City, down in Georgia, Atlanta, Georgia. But anyway, most of the pollution, believe it or not, is indoors, inside your house. So there's two ways of measuring your home air, with and without gas stoves. If you have a gas stove, your carbon monoxide level in the house is pretty high compared to houses that do not have gas stoves. They have electric stoves. Let's look at the numbers. Without a gas stove, it's 0.5 to 5 parts per million. With a gas stove, it is 5 to 15 parts per million, if the stove is working correctly. So, what do the experts recommend the levels be that you're exposed to carbon monoxide? The National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health recommend no more than 35 parts per million in an 8-hour period. Deaths from carbon monoxide poisoning are as follows: 200 deaths from fuel burning heaters inside homes. Can't believe people still do that. 5,613 smoke inhalation deaths, meaning you're caught in a fire, probably in your sleep, and your house is on fire. You die from the smoke. And 400 non-flammable caused deaths. For those that run the car and they run in an enclosed environment like a garage and they commit suicide that way to get the parts per million up high enough to kill you. That's at 400 per year here in the U.S. So we mentioned India earlier. Let's go to Delhi, one of the most polluted cities in the world, where most of the pollution in Delhi is CO, which is carbon monoxide, on the periodic table. So Delhi's trying to figure out what to do with all this horrible air pollution. They don't want to give up the cars and the engines, and they don't want to have to put pollution control on any of their equipment. So they've come up with an idea where they're just going to make huge filtration boxes that will filter huge quantities of air, and they'll take out the pollution that way, they think. But they forget that running these filters takes more fossil fuel, which then puts more carbon and carbon monoxide in the air. So aren't you just doing some kind of loop-de-doo thingy and not taking on the problem like you should with mass transit, electric mass transit, and bicycle paths, and outlawing cars in most of the city? It works. It works here in San Francisco. So next we're going to talk about a nurse under the National Nurses Association president, Deborah Burger, reads a statement as follows.
I'm going to read a statement from one of our quarantine nurses who works at a Northern California Kaiser facility. She chose to share her experience anonymously, but she is hoping that her story can be elevated to raise public awareness about concerns for the coronavirus response. She said, "As a nurse, I'm very concerned that not enough is being done to stop the spread of the coronavirus. I know because I'm currently sick, in quarantine, after caring for a patient who tested positive. I am awaiting permission from the federal government to allow for my testing, even after my physician and county health professional ordered the test. The national CDC would not initiate the test. They said they would not test me because if I were wearing the recommended protective equipment, then I wouldn't have the coronavirus." What kind of science-based answer is that? What a ridiculous and uneducated response from the department that is in charge of the health of this country. Later, they called back, and now it's an issue with something called the identifier number. They claim they prioritize running samples by illness severity and that there are only so many to give out each day, so I have to wait in line for the results. This is not a ticket dispenser at the deli counter. It's a public health emergency. I'm a registered nurse and I need to know if I'm positive before going back to care for patients. I'm appalled at the level of bureaucracy that's preventing nurses from getting tested. Delaying this test puts the whole community at risk. I have the backing of my union. Nurses aren't going to stand by and let this testing delay continue. We are going to stand together so we can make sure that we protect our patients by being protected ourselves.
For anybody that hasn't been following this, the Orange Man here in the U.S. is debacling this virus. He doesn't want to test so that it gives false hope that the U.S. will stay low so that he'll win the next election. In reality, there are probably people all over the U.S. spreading the virus without any control at all, without any testing, any recommendations to wear gloves or masks or anything else. People are hoarding toilet paper, toothpaste, soap, and detergents at this time here in San Francisco. But I'm sure his followers won't get sick, huh? Oh, by the way, the Orange Man and some of his dominion shook hands with someone at CPAC who turned out was infected. I have a feeling this virus is smart enough not to go into the Orange Man. Ooh, I would take it that they're smart enough to avoid people like that. What a shame. I appreciate all the ups, downs, and new subscribers. Until next time.